the opportunities can be there, and they are, because there's a lot more women's representation that is out there right now. And I'm sure they have a desire to be elevated to the next level.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Lady Wrestler, the story behind the story. This podcast takes a deeper dive into the issues explored in the documentary Lady Wrestler, the amazing, untold story of African American women in the ring, which is now streaming on Amazon Prime Video. I'm Chris Bournet, and I directed the documentary. Lady Wrestler chronicles how trailblazing African-American women like Babs Wingo, Ethel Johnson, Marva Scott, Ramona Isbell, and Kathleen Wembley integrated pro wrestling in the 1950s and 60s. So let me ask you this. For those of us who support women's wrestling, what can we do to ensure that women, especially women of color, continue to advance in the industry and receive their much-deserved recognition? Here to weigh in is Daryl Johnson, also known as Tha Real Docta D, nationally known wrestling commentator and advocate, and host of Dr. D's Wrestling Showcase, among other ventures. Without further ado, Doctor, take it away. Do you feel that that opportunities are starting to open up more for women wrestlers generally, and in particular, Black women and women of color?
Well, I hope so. And I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this. And I think that when I look back at the eras of women's wrestling overall, and including Black women wrestlers, I think that the opportunities then should have been more greater and more recognizable as our male counterparts. When I reflect back, Chris, on watching women's wrestling as a kid, and all I knew at that time was Fabulous Moolah, Wendy Richter, and then later Sherry and the Glow and PAL and LPWA series. It's like you didn't see Black women prevalent like you may have in the 80s, when you just saw them on Glow, or you saw them on POW, or you saw them on LPWA, which at that time, we know that Glow and POW and LPWA, they were more in the lines of the WWF, where it was more Saturday morning friendly, cartoonish, comical, and all of that. Less of the wrestling, more of the entertainment, which sometimes is not a bad thing, depending on what kind of limits you have to use for that particular time. But my thing is, all I ever knew as far as Black women in the 80s was what I saw on Glow and what I saw on POW and LPWA. Names like Destiny, names like Lady Soul, and names like another name escapes me right now that I was just watching on LPWA, but there you go. I mean, the Black women wrestlers at that time, we don't tend to remember all of them that at least were a part of that particular era. And then that's when Jacqueline came on the scene and Jazz came on the scene, where the Black women were getting the opportunities and they were being taken seriously, because you had those two women that were raising the bar. You know what I'm saying? And after that, that's when you started hearing more about the Black women that's coming about, from the Naomis to the Biancas to now the Kiera Hogans, the Tasha Steeles, and definitely the ladies of the indie scene, to the Faye Jacksons and the Trisha Doras and the Amber Rodriguez, the Ariella Nix, the Casey Lennox, the Sasha Banks, of course. Sasha Banks is up in there with WWE, but I was thinking Sahara 7 when it comes to the indies. And yes, the opportunities are we are seeing now, because if any place they are being recognized is in the indie scene. So just as I had been a part of the indie scene for quite a long time, I always look for those particular names, those particular women, to get those same opportunities in a WWE or an Impact or a Ring of Honor, like what Ring of Honor is doing right now with rebooting the women's division and the women's championship. Trisha Dora is a part of that tournament. And I'm very excited that DC's own Trisha Dora is a part of that tournament, because she's been killing it right now during this whole pandemic. So, saying all of that, Chris, I definitely believe that the opportunities are more out there, but in terms of where the opportunities are being taken place, it's a matter of the right opportunities that are given to them. And when you look at AEW, for example, and you see Jay Cargill and you see Red Velvet and you see Big Swole, well, right now there's a they have a good spot, but after, let's say, after Britt Baker becomes AEW Women's Champion, which we know that's going to happen, what's going to be next for Jade Cargill or Red Velvet or Big Swole? Will they finally be next in line? Because Big Swole, to me right now, I would love to be next. I know she's been dealing with her Crohn's illness at that time. So I hope she's bouncing back to be able to get the spot that she rightfully deserves. So going all over the place, but the bottom line that I'm looking at in terms of your question, Chris, is the opportunities can be there, and they are, because there's a lot more women's representation that is out there right now. And I'm sure they have a desire to be elevated to the next level.
It seems like up until now, the popularity of women's wrestling has been cyclical. Back when Ethel Johnson and the original Black lady wrestlers, were getting into the business. They were getting in on the tail end of, what they call the golden age of women's wrestling, from the 30s through the 50s. Then it kind of waned for a while. And then, like you said, in the 80s, it started to gain popularity again with Glow. Then it waned for a while. Now it's coming back stronger. Do you think that cyclical nature will continue? Or do you think maybe now women's wrestling will be able to sustain the popularity rather than going through these like boom and bust cycles where it's popular for a while, then kind of, nobody pays attention for a while? Or do you think it's more sustained now?
I would say, Chris, yes, it is highly noticeable. It can't be ignored. And I don't see a decline anymore when it comes to a period where women's wrestling is not going to be noticed again. Truth be told, that may only apply to, let's say, maybe WWE with what went down with Mickey James and how outspoken she has been lately with how the women's division is not as it should be. And you would figure that after Evolution, after that great pay-per-view that they put on, you would figure that they would continue to capitalize on that. I think that we do see women's wrestling continue the level where they're at right now, because it's too hard not to notice. It's too hard not to notice. And if it's not in places like WWE, then we'll get it from Ring of Honor, we'll get it from Impact, we'll get it from AEW. Hopefully, we'll get it from MLW, because if you notice, MLW doesn't have a women's division yet. MLW doesn't have a women's division yet. And Casey Lennox, a personal friend of mine from the Bmore area, I've known her since she was maybe 14 or 15 years old. And she's definitely making her name a name for herself down in Florida. And she was at at a point in time the backstage commentator, correspondent for MLW. Not sure what happened in terms of her not being there anymore, but I would love to have seen the women's division built around her. So maybe if I ever get a chance to talk to Court Bauer, I'll finally ask that question: where's your women's division? So uh, we're getting our women's wrestling for sure. I think with WWE, we would like to see more of the women that gets the proper opportunities that the four horsewomen had laid down, that Flair, Becky, Sasha, and Bailey had elevated, because you have so many talents on that roster that we're waiting for them to get at that next level. So, for example, I'm hoping that Rhea Ripley finally gets her win on Charlotte, like she should have at WrestleMania. But at the same time, now that some of the women are getting those opportunities, like Tamina, some of the women that are slowly getting those opportunities again, maybe maybe we can see WWE women's division be at another level. But as far as how the company is structured, who knows? Who knows? But as we're waiting for WWE to put another injection into the women's division, Chris, we can still look for the talent in Ring of Honor, because that women's division tournament, that women's championship tournament, is something that I'm sure a lot of wrestling fans are keeping their eye on. I'm sure a lot of people are enjoying Impact Wrestling. If I had to look at it, Chris, Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling right now may have the best women's division, and I know that's that's going to be something that may open a lot of eyes. But if we're really looking at it, the women that we've been enjoying on the independent scene, we are finally celebrating on places in places like Ring of Honor and Impact. Right now, yeah, I can pretty much say that it's safe to say that I am enjoying what I'm seeing in women's wrestling from Ring of Honor, from Impact Wrestling, and from the indie scene.
One of the things that's struck me the most on this whole journey of making and distributing the Lady Wrestler documentary is I have never spoken to a male wrestling fan who didn't have the utmost respect for women wrestlers. I've never spoken to a male wrestling fan who said, she's all right for a girl. Male wrestling fans have respect for women's wrestling. So obviously there is a demand for women's wrestling among wrestling fans, period, regardless of gender. So what role do the fans play? Did the fan, other than, just attending the matches, back when everything goes back to normal after COVID, and, tuning in so the ratings for the women's matches are high enough that they'll be worthwhile. What role do the fans play? Is it, because obviously wrestling is just like anything else where it's, demand, the companies will meet the demand of the consumers. So what do the consumers and the fans need to elevate women's wrestling?
So here's my thing as a fan, and I would like to believe there are a lot of fans like me that are out there, Chris. The fans are in the consumers, as you said. And when I think of how much of a consumer you can be, it can be in the merch, it can be in the ratings, it can even be in the board of directors, it can even be in the sponsors. It can even it's not just the social media where we gave women's wrestling a chance or gave divas a chance at that time. It's not just in the social media, it's in the buying power basically. And the buying power is in the stocks is that such as WWE. I am a shareholder with WWE. The buying power is, as I said, in the merchandise. The buying power is in the pay-per-views, and not just in the major pay-per-views, but those that are purchasing through Fight, those that are purchasing through IWTV and other platforms. In Bleacher Report to also throw in there. I think women's wrestling is at a good spot where we can elevate them outside of the main companies, and because we know the main companies are paying attention, because even though they think they may not be competition, they are. They are. And even as I'm talking, Chris, I also failed to mention NWA has a great women's division. Otherwise, we wouldn't see NWA and AEW having that kind of partnership with Serena Deeb being defending the women title in AEW as well. But getting back to what you were saying, I tend to be very outspoken, as you know, with the women that I support when it comes to their social media, when it comes to their merchandise, whether it comes to featuring them on my Dr. D's Wrestling Showcase. When I put out a couple of women's episodes for Women's History Month, that is still in my archives on my YouTube pages. But at the same time, it's very good to get to know them before they make the big time, which is I had the tendency of doing quite well in getting to know them through their humble beginnings, as I often say. So when it comes to supporting the women and getting them in the platform that that they deserve, it's a matter of changing your buying power. Do you have an investment in that particular wrestler right now? If not, we know that you have an investment in this particular women's wrestler. A lot of people were invested in Bianca and Sasha as the match of the year, which again, I will say that come next year, PWI will make that mention as match of the year. That right there, Chris, would be the reason why women's wrestling would be at a plateau that the men are.
Is there anything else that we haven't discussed yet? Anything else that can be done to advance women's wrestling, in your opinion?
Again, back to what I was saying, even with the how women's wrestling has changed when it comes to receiving the accolades, such as the PWI awards, and receiving the accolades that we have been seeing from what the four horsewomen have done. We look for who would be considered the next great women's talent, because right now, after seeing Becky, Sasha, Charlotte, and Bailey, and now with Bianca, it's a matter of, okay, who could be that next great thing that we're looking at? You know what I mean? We, of course, uh, look for something once again from Naomi. We definitely want Naomi's name to still be out there. And if anything helps right now, Chris, I do have a clip that I could show where I had a chance to talk to WWF legend Desiree Peterson, and which I happened to at Baltimore Celeb Fest, in which I happened to plug your movie, which she would definitely be willing to watch if you don't mind me showing.
Absolutely. And thank you for that plug.
We are live. We are at Baltimore Celeb Fest. We are at Baltimore Celeb Fest. Here you go. Look at this. Look at this turnout over here. This is such a great turnout. And we getting ready to do this thing, y'all. There he is. The man, Uncle Tony, Mr. U.S. Layla is right there. AC Kelly. Is that you? Tatanka. I'm going to be working my way. There's WWF legend, Miss Desiree Peterson. Miss Desiree.
Are you talking about me?
Yes, I am. How often do you get to come out and greet the fans? Because I'm going to tell you something. You're one of the people that I wanted to meet. Yes.
Thank you so much. And actually, when I got out of wrestling, I got out of wrestling.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. And thanks to Chad and Dave and Nick and a few other people that are bringing me back out for autograph sessions,
yes.
That's how this all developed.
I appreciate it, man, because it's like, when was the last time we've heard from Desiree? Fabulous Moolah with Wendy Richter, with Velvet McIntyre, Judy Martin, Leilani Carr. Yes, so many contributions. So how do you, Miss Desiree, view women's wrestling today? Have you had a chance to?
Awesome. I am so glad it's hitting the pinnacles that it is. Some marks with the fans, but of course they're not interested in what I have to say about that. But that's okay. We rocked it, and it's such a shame that we've been so forgotten because there was a lot of great women and a lot of great talent back in that day.
Yes, a lot of great talent, and I would recommend also, if you haven't had the chance, there's a documentary that's out called Lady Wrestler about the African American females at that time, such as Ethel Johnson, Babs Winger. Had the chance to know back in the day, so I definitely recommend that. But thank you so much, Desiree. We're going to be talking with Desiree and so many others, so stay tuned, because this won't be the last live, but stay tuned. We'll be right here at Baltimore Celeb Fest. And yes, me and Uncle Tony about to eat.
Just a FYI, Wendy Richter will be at Baltimore Celeb Fest in October, and I had a chance to meet her years ago, so I definitely am going to be looking forward to talking with Wendy.
Daryl, that is awesome. Thank you for the shout out. That was awesome getting to hear her reaction. So that was so cool.
Absolutely.
So cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so people can find you at Tha Real Docta D on all the social media platforms, right?
Absolutely. And Dr. D's Wrestling Showcase is returning on my social platforms in the summer, as well as airing on dctv.org, which is Washington's public access station, but it can be viewed on their website, dctv.org. So I am working on rebooting my Wrestling Showcase program this summer.
Cool. Well, again, thank you for all the support. Anytime you need me to do anything, holler. I just appreciate you. Thanks again to Daryl Johnson, aka Tha Real Docta D, for those insights on how those of us who are staunch advocates for women's wrestling can put real action behind our good intentions. The interview with Tha Real Docta D is one of a series of exciting new interviews with wrestling insiders and wrestlers themselves on Lady Wrestler, the story behind the story. To catch future episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to get the complete story by streaming the Lady Wrestler documentary on Amazon Prime Video. And if you happen to watch the documentary, please take a couple minutes to leave a review and tell friends and family about the documentary, because that helps more people to find out about these amazing women and the contributions they made to history. Thank you for tuning in. Catch you next time.